Today's Cowboys Report is made possible by 8 Sleep, bringing you heating and cooling tech that keeps you comfortable and sleeping deeper for a better, more restful night. More on them later on in today's show as we break down the report from Adam Schefter that says the Cowboys are a sleeper team to draft a quarterback in this year's NFL draft. We'll break down what Schefter said, some solid reasoning behind his maybe more theory than outright report, and also what the Cowboys could look to do in reality in this year's draft. Now, if you want a second Cowboys Report video today, then share this one. The more shares we get, the more views we get, the more revenue we make, and the more people we can hire and do more videos for you at Chat Sports. So simple, free, easy to do. Simply share today's video on social media. Here's the report from Adam Schefter on NFL Live yesterday evening, afternoon, whatever it was timing-wise, saying, what are they, the Cowboys, going to do at quarterback if they lose Dak? That's interesting, and that's why I think the Cowboys might be a sleeper team in the quarterback market during the draft, because at some point in time, they might have to draft a quarterback higher than you think, because Dak is going into the last year of the contract, and it might be time to get someone in there to start grooming him. I would argue that Schefter's logic isn't bad here. This actually does make some sense, because not having a franchise quarterback is a bad thing. There is a scenario that exists next year. The Cowboys have all 3 quarterbacks hit free agency. Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush, and Trey Lance are all out of contracts. Their contracts end after this upcoming season. There's the franchise tag option for Lance and Rush only, which they're not going to do, and they could be picking in the 20s again. Well, that's not a good spot to be picking to find a quarterback. Sleeper does mean surprise, by the way, because no one's really been mocking a quarterback to the Cowboys, and any of the 3-round mock drafts say pretty much never has a quarterback going there. And that's because drafting a quarterback doesn't seem to be the plan this year for the Dallas Cowboys. And in the end, I would be very surprised if the Cowboys took a quarterback this year, at least early on. 7th rounders don't really count for anything. So prediction time, and we'll get to a lot more on this conversation, of course, after the ad break coming up here. Will the Cowboys draft a QB in this year's NFL draft? This could be any round, so 7th round counts. Y for yes, N for no at the pinned comment. The Cowboys draft picks this year, they're light. 1st round pick, a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, no 4th round pick, a 5th round comp pick. They traded the 5th rounder for Eric Scott, a 6th round pick, a 7th round pick, and then another 7th round pick. That one via the Raiders, plus they got the other comp pick because they traded that one away too. So they're a bit lighter on draft capital than what they would like to have. But there is no 4th round pick, which could be a great pick to draft a quarterback to groom and develop because they already spent it on a quarterback. That's Trey Lance. And I think leaving Trey Lance out of this entire conversation from Schefter was probably a bit of a mistake, frankly. Lance is the developmental quarterback. Now, he has not played very much, 8 career games. The numbers are not very impressive from the former top 5 overall pick. But when the Cowboys gave up a 4th, remember last year, they were interested in drafting a quarterback. They had interest in guys like Aiden O'Connell. They had brought those guys in for visits. They had met with them. And the timing didn't work out from a draft pick perspective. And they flipped a future 4th round pick to acquire Trey Lance. That is no different than drafting a guy in the 4th or 5th round last year or drafting a guy in the 4th round this season. I would argue Trey Lance is the developmental quarterback. Because remember, with the way the NFL rules work in the offseason and the preseason, there's only so many reps you can give. There's only so many playing time in the preseason. Don't really want to have a Trey Lance and another draft pick who you want to try to groom and develop because you don't really have the hands-on time with the coaching staff to give them the reps that they would most likely need. So for me, and I think for the Cowboys as well, it's probably Lance or somebody else. And unless they're already out on Lance, which would be a concern and a bit of a red flag, I think maybe a surprise as well, because they haven't seen him play a game yet. That's what the preseason is going to be for this year. There's not really room for both of those guys. More to come on, what are the Cowboys plotting this year in the draft. But today's show is made possible by 8 Sleep. I've always slept pretty well. My wife has not early on. Thankfully, the 8 Sleep Pod 3 cover has brought the heating and cooling tech we need to keep us sleeping comfortable and deeper sleeping for a better, more restful night. Sleep science shows that in order to sleep our best, our body temperature must drop in the early and middle part of sleep and then rise in the morning. The 8 Sleep Pod cover will improve your sleep by automatically adjusting your bed's temperature based on your individual needs. The cover is added to any bed just like a fitted sheet is and allows you and your partner to cool or warm your side of the bed as low as 55 degrees and up to 110 degrees. In addition to keeping your body the perfect temperature all night, the pod tracks your sleep and health metrics. On average, pod users see their sleep quality improve by 32% after just a month on the pod. So go to 8sleep.com/chatsports and get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod cover by 8 Sleep. Start the new year right and invest in the rest that you deserve with the 8 Sleep Pod. Links in the comments section and the description of today's show. The reality is for the Dallas Cowboys that the future of Dak Prescott is uncertain. They haven't made and really tried to make much progress in a contract. They run the risk of losing him next year. So at minimum, to borrow a favorite phrase from Stephen Jones, this team should be doing their due diligence on quarterbacks. Now, there is a difference between doing their due diligence and heavily trying to figure out if there's one that can be their franchise guy. The Cowboys have never hid their draft plans with their combine meetings and 30 visits. So here's the list of known 30 visits for the Dallas Cowboys at quarterback in this year's draft cycle. There's nobody. Now, there are a couple unknown 30 visit spots left. Could be a quarterback. They could be hiding it. None that we know of. The known Cowboys combine formal meetings at quarterback. There's none. That I don't believe is an accident. The Cowboys have never been afraid to use their 30 visits to indicate their plans, right? They've brought in a bunch of offensive linemen, they've brought in a bunch of linebackers, and running backs. Those are areas they are looking heavily at drafting. The formal meetings are key too, because you want to get to know your potential next quarterback. Not doing that would be pretty weird. So there are two options in terms of how we take that information and what it means. Option one, the Cowboys, who have never been good at this, are hiding their draft intentions insanely well. They have prevented any and all leaks and meeting info coming out, and they've secretly met with a quarterback or two behind the scenes, and nobody knows about it. Possible would be a surprise. Option two, the Cowboys aren't hiding their intentions, and they just have no plans on drafting a quarterback, especially early. They're focusing their efforts on their bigger needs right now. I lean more towards option two. Because assuming there isn't a surprise hidden meeting that nobody knows about, which, much like a conspiracy theory, that's what makes it fun. You can never disprove it. Would the Cowboys really plan on finding and drafting a new franchise quarterback, knowing that the head coach is probably going to be different next year as well in this scenario, without getting to know him, without doing a lot of meetings and figuring out if he's the guy, because it's such an important position and tough to scout? I have my heavy doubts there. So what is the percent chance you think the Cowboys draft a quarterback this year? Some names we'll get to here momentarily. Sound off for me in the comments section. You're not going to get Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy outside of felonies occurring between now and the draft, so cross them off the list. Michael Penix could maybe be there for you. Maybe he goes to a team like the Raiders or Broncos who are in more dire straits at quarterback than you are. Maybe the medicals don't check out. But also, did you bring him in for the medical checks or no? I like what Penix offers as a quarterback. I don't know if he's ever going to be a top 15 QB or ever going to be a true franchise quarterback. The medical concerns are real, and when things aren't clean, when he has to win outside of structure, things get a little bit dicey, but he is my number 5 QB in this year's class. Bo Nix is number 6. His numbers are very impressive. He has been a much better quarterback than what we saw at Auburn, and I give him all the credit in the world for that. The mobility is there. He might have a higher floor than Penix because of his mobility and his athletic ability. He also thrived in an Oregon offense that was fake. It was all short stuff. His time to throw was bottom 5 in college football. He didn't have to do a bunch of multi-read stuff. It was one read and out. Spencer Rattler, who was once mocked as a potential first overall pick, well, this is not the same player anymore. There are still flashes. It's a trap, though. Spencer Rattler is a draft trap because, yeah, it looks nice at times. The consistency's still not there. And that's an issue for me because Trey Lance is the same age as these dudes. Yeah, seriously, folks. Spencer Rattler is the youngest of those 4 quarterbacks. He turns 24 on September 28th. Trey Lance turns 24 on May 9th, one day after Michael Penix also turns 24. Bo Nix is 24 already. He's older than Trey Lance is. Michael Penix is older than Trey Lance is. The only real benefit there of the unknown quarterback option is you have more team control. But you also would, in theory, have a new head coach in there, and does that head coach want that guy? The upside, of potential franchise guy kind of goes away as you get a little bit older when there are other concerns you have to address in terms of your overall play. So if there is a quarterback you want to draft in this year's class, let me know who it is. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section right now. Now, I think, Rattler and Penix and Nix probably go top 100. Maybe Rattler slides a bit to the 4th round, but he's not going to get to the 5th round, I don't think. So some 5th round options. Joe Milton has one of the strongest arms in football. No idea where it's going to go. Remains a bad decision maker. He's Tyree Jackson. Jordan Travis, I think, is a tough football player. I honestly just didn't like the accuracy. I think he kind of got bailed out at times by Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Michael Pratt has some fans out of Tulane, but I didn't love him either. Again, screams day 3 pick to me. Sam Hartman, I don't think he's very good. Keaton Slovis is athletic. Devin Leary has the arm strength, but the consistency is not there for any of those guys. A 5th round pick doesn't really do anything for me. Guys probably aren't better right now than Trey Lance, and most of them are still older too. So it doesn't move the needle of you got to develop somebody. Okay, your 5th round pick probably isn't going to be ready next year. Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, those guys are the exceptions. The odds of hitting on a 5th round pick or later to be a franchise guy, like Brady, and that's kind of it. Brock Purdy, that's it. There's been one guy since the 2012 NFL draft that's kind of become a top 10 or fringe top 10 QB, Purdy. Those odds are not good. It's 5% chance. Now, we are 12 subs away from 168,500 subscribers. Help us get there. Hit that sub button right now. So to recap, I would be very surprised if the Cowboys drafted a quarterback, especially early enough to potentially set him up as your next franchise quarterback. And that's just my opinion. Do not forget what Jerry Jones said at the NFL Combine when asked, "What do you mean by all in?" He said this, and I quote, "I've drafted quarterbacks for the future. I would be reluctant to do that this year. That's an example. That's called all in this season."